Hey guys, I'm super excited. Welcome to another amazing YouTube video, but this time is way more special because I've got the incredible Samuel Leeds here, who is, say hi Samuel.
Hey, what's up?
Who's got lots of energy. He's very kindly helped to come on this amazing virtual interview because we can't be together because of COVID and I live in a different country, and you know what, this was easier at the time, but I feel like you're going to add so much value in terms of property. Now, just to tell you guys what Samuel does, he has been in property for 12 incredible long years, so he definitely knows what he's talking about. Not only that, he's also got a castle. He's the biggest UK property education company, which is a pretty big statement, and I love that. And he helps people, and he's done 300 property deals himself. He's helped so many entrepreneurs get into property, and we're going to talk about that because I feel like that's going to be an incredible amount of value that you can add. So I've got a few questions I've written down. So every time I look here, by the way, guys, I have got my notepad, which you know I'm famous for always having. I love asking questions that I feel are going to add lots of value to my audience. My audience knows I've been in property, Samuel. So I love property, and I know that was my natural first choice. But I want to ask you straight away, just because when people want to learn how to make money, what made you, for example, go into property and nothing else?
So thank you for the great introduction. It's a real honor to be on the show. So thanks, first of all. The reason I got into property, the reason I love property so much, and most of my money and efforts goes into property, is because I can see it, I can touch it, I can feel it, I can smell it. I have conversations all the time with investors that are very successful, that invest in other things, business, gold, silver. I know you're very, very successful in Forex. So it's not that I think property is, this is better. It's just that for me, I understand it. Like, you can steal gold, you can't steal property. It's attached to the floor. You know, no one can steal it. And I like the fact that it holds its value. It appreciates, generally speaking, over time. I like the fact that it gives me rent. I can visit it. To me, it just makes perfect sense. You can be a property investor, but you can also be a property entrepreneur. So you can invest money in property, but you can also make money in property by doing things like packaging and selling deals. There's so much scope. The pie is so big. It can be chopped up in many different ways. So it's just what I understand. And I like to do it because I am good at it. So that's kind of why property for me.
No, I love that. And I agree. The sky's the limit with property. You can't ever say you've made it until you've got like every skyscraper in every high-rising city in the planet. Like, there's so much scope for property, and I love how you think, and you're very energetic. But let's backtrack to like your younger years and what made you want to be wealthy, full stop. Like, let's ask, I love like people who are self-made. I know that's you, but I really want to get into the mindset of what made you even want to be wealthy. Like, what was that? Why did you choose this?
I think everybody really wants to be wealthy. Everybody wants to be successful. So the question is, why did I want it so bad? Everybody wants to have passive income. Everybody wants to succeed in what they're doing, pretty much. I mean, I've never met anybody that says, I want to be a failure. You know, I want to be a bum. So I wanted to be successful, of course. The thing that really drove me actually was to financial freedom, was the fact that I didn't like what I was doing. I left school and I was working for my dad, and my dad, fabulous guy, but I didn't like working for my dad. I was working as an entertainer. I was getting paid £25 a day. I was having to work on a Sundays. I recently became a Christian. I wanted to dedicate my life to the church when I was 16, 17, and I couldn't because I had this job. And I was like, man, I left school, and I couldn't wait to leave school because school was a drag, but now I got a job, and that's even worse. So, like, surely this isn't it until I'm 67 and a half years old. Like, surely there's another way. And that was when I actually Googled, my dad is keeping me poor. And I came across the book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, of course, as I know you've read the book as well. And yeah. Robert Kiyosaki, the way that he talked about money, I always understood the difference between being employed and self-employed. What I didn't know was about being an investor and a business owner. So that book opened me up, and I initially just wanted to get some passive income and to get some investment income. to give me more time freedom so I could live life on my terms. I wanted to plug myself into the church. The church were always saying, oh, we're doing this mission trip. We're going out to Spain to a drug rehab center. Who wants to come? And I'm just there thinking, well, I can't come because I've got this job. I can't get time off. And for me, that really bothered me. So I quit my job when I was 16 when I quit. And I just threw myself into property. Luckily, I was living with my mum. My parents split up, but I was living with my mum, so my overheads were really low. And I just started going to property network meetings, immersing myself in the game, and thinking, how can I add value to these people? How can I maybe I can just rent their rooms out, for next to nothing, or maybe I can go and view houses for people. So I just threw myself full time into property with very little overheads, became a sponge, put my paper and money into education, and immersed myself into the world of property when I was a teenager.
Wow, you started very young, and I think that's incredible. I wish I did, and that's a real inspiration for young people that are watching this. So what would you say? I mean, you said you were an entertainer, which is amazing because not everyone has that opportunity. What were you doing by entertaining? Like, what were you?
It was terrible. It was terrible. I was just doing like kids' parties, discos.
But look how extrovert you are, because I feel like character is...
I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it, but I didn't like how little money it was. I didn't like the fact that I was getting paid little and I was having to work for my dad, having to go out, drop off a hat when he asked. I didn't like that. And I also didn't like the fact that, although cool, I was entertaining kids and, it was fine and it was fun, but I thought there must be more to life than this. I didn't feel like I was changing the planet. I didn't feel like I was going to die and people were going to be like, thank God for Samuel Leeds. Didn't he leave a legacy? I'm just going to make kids laugh and play nice music. So I wanted to do something that gave me not only success, but I always had this fire in my belly for significance.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think with your kind of personality, it would be a shame if you didn't actually do what you did now, because there's so much energy to give on. So thank you. Now, what actually, based on that one aspect, because I feel that when people want to try property, and I have had some clients come to me, Fortune Academy or otherwise, and they're really introverted. So what advice would you give to someone that is absolutely shit scared to even try and negotiate or like talk to a stranger? What would you say to them? Can they make it in property?
Absolutely. I mean, listen, whatever your natural abilities are and your natural characteristics and personality is, there's always going to have some pros and some cons. So for me, I'm naturally quite a loud person. I've got a loud voice. I'm extrovert for sure. And that does have some pros, but it also has cons. Because if you're introverted, sometimes people will find it easier to talk to you. You might be better on one-on-one, and you can build strong one-on-one relationships. And believe it or not, in business, you don't have to have like loads of people that know who you are, and you just need a few good relationships. I always say in business, a good relationship is better than a good deal. So actually, I find that, being introverted is not such a bad thing, and 100%, you just need to flip the cards and think, how can I use this for my advantage? And I also think there's a difference between being introverted and being shy. So if you're introverted, that means that your energy comes when you're alone or just from one person. You're not good in crowds. You don't want to be in the spotlight. That's why an introvert is someone that just likes to be alone and doesn't want to be around people. Being shy is someone that doesn't want to look stupid because they don't want to make an ass out of themselves. They don't want to be rejected. I think being shy is a problem. If you're shy and you're thinking, look, I don't want to look stupid, then you need to say, actually, you know what? I'm prepared to look stupid. I'm prepared to get told no. I'm prepared to get rejected, because that's just being uncomfortable. And in fact, I better get used to being uncomfortable, because if I'm always in my comfort zone, I'm not growing. So if you're shy and you say, what should I do? I'll say, get used to being uncomfortable, because you're not growing, and you need to get used to being rejected and being told no. If you're introverted, no problem whatsoever. You can be introverted and you can be very, very successful.
That is amazing. That's so useful, because I actually I couldn't sometimes figure out how an introverted person could actually be so good at property, or the way I did it, like we're negotiating face to face and whatever. But in today's day and age, I feel that we get so many millennials who actually don't want to speak to people face to face. So if you are telling them they're going to be good in property, that is a huge takeaway. And I love how much you know about human behavioral psychology. How much work have you done on that? Because that's pretty good knowledge.
Well, I get asked the questions a lot, because the thing is, because I'm an encourager, and my job as a wealthy person is not only just to be wealthy myself, it's to help other people. people ask me a lot, or they'll come up with excuses. So people say, oh, I can't be successful because I'm like this or because I'm like that. Yeah. And then I'm curious, so I'll study that trait, and then I'll try and find I'm an excuse buster. So I like to bust people's excuses. That's why, the Financial Freedom Challenge that I did, I don't know if you saw it, it was all over the news and stuff, where I started all over again from scratch with nothing. I locked myself away from my bank. I changed my identity. I got dumped into a random city, and I started again from scratch. And I built up my whole portfolio again from scratch. I documented it. I did it as a social experiment, just because people kept saying to me, Samuel, you got lucky in 2009. And I'm like, no. Or Samuel, you had this advantage, that advantage. Or Samuel, the only reason you're successful is because everyone knows who you are. I'm thinking they didn't know who I was when I started. So I started all over again from scratch, and really just to not for me, but to bust people's excuses, not to make them look stupid or to say, see, I'm brilliant, aren't I? But to actually say, look, if I can do it under those circumstances with no money, when no one knows who I am, dumped into a random city, and I can do it fast and document it, then you've got no excuses. So come on, you can do it. Because I want to encourage people in business. I want to encourage people in finance and property and wealth. Because I believe that this stuff that we know and that we teach is actually held back from the general public. It's not taught in schools. It is illegal to teach money in schools. It's not part of the curriculum. And I believe that people need to actually stand up that have been there, done it, got the t-shirt, and show people the way.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. Oh my God, so much to take in there. So by the way, I know I've actually came across you the very first time because of that documentary or whatever it is. And I can't remember exactly where, but where are people going to find it? Because I found that amazing.
That's on YouTube.
On YouTube, okay, fine. Because that is huge. And I remember even looking at the title and thinking, wow, if he's done that, that is really inspiring for people to see that there are no excuses. Start from ground zero, and show them how to do it. That's amazing. That's really, really inspiring. Do you find many people find, okay, so based on that, what is a better situation? So everyone who comes to me, the common question I get is, right, they're mid-20s, or I have two scenarios. I'm going to give you the first one is when they're like not got a proper job yet. They don't want a job. So they're trying to be like you, let's say, so they're not even 30 yet, super young, but they don't want to get stuck in the 9 to 5. What would your advice be for someone who wants to start property? What should they be doing in this day and age, 2020?
Yeah. I mean, listen, it depends why you don't want to do a 9 to 5. If you don't want to do a 9 to 5 because you don't want to have to work hard, then I'll say, maybe you do need to get a 9 to 5. Maybe you need to get a 9 to 5 and you need to do property on top. The reason I didn't do 9 to 5 ever, really, I was in a fortunate situation whereby I was living with my mom. Like I was 17, my overheads were low. If your overheads are £2,000-3,000 a month and you've got a couple kids and you want to start in property, it might take a bit of time, and you can build it up alongside your job. So, generally speaking, when people come to me from a position of, I don't want to work hard, I just want an easy life, it's going to be very challenging for you but if you want an easy life later, you might have to put the work in now. But it's not realistic to say, oh, you can just have an easy life, not work hard. I had to work really, really, really hard, much harder than a job would have been. But it's all about short-term pain for long-term gain. It's about delayed gratification. So if someone says, I don't want a job because I just don't want a job, but I'm happy to work really hard, sure, you can work really hard as an entrepreneur from scratch, and you can do things like you can go and go to property investment meetings and say, hey, 50 investors in this room, if you're serious about buying property and you've got cash and you want to buy property, I'd love to talk to you because I'm actually out viewing properties all the time and I might have something for you. Then they'll come and they'll say, maybe 5 or 6 will say, oh, what's this about? And you can say, look, well, actually, I've got a lot of time on my hands. I'm going out viewing properties. What are you looking for? What are you looking to buy? Oh, I'm looking for a HMO in Birmingham. Great. How much? 100 grand tops. All right, great. What's the return on investment you're looking for? 20%. If I can find you something next week, would you be open to paying me a £2,000 finder's fee? Yeah, if it ticks the boxes, sure. Great. What's your number? What's your business card? Like, you could literally do that tomorrow, and then the following week find a good deal and start making money. Now, of course, it's a business. You've got to register the business and stuff. And that would be instead of a job. And then that's called being a property entrepreneur. And then that money that you make, you're going to pay yourself a salary, and then anything above that, you're going to put into investments. You're going to dump it into a property. Listen, there's no reason why anyone couldn't do that and then do that instead of a job. But what you can't do is you can't do nothing. You can't say, I don't want a job. I just want to just lie back and do property. Like property is graft. It's bricks and mortar. It's people. It's tenants. It's investors. It's work. Can you systemize it and get passive income? 1,000,000,000%. But that takes time.
Yeah, I love that advice. I mean, like, that is exactly what I tell everybody to do when it comes to just get a solid mentor. And you mentor so many people on this. I mean, which makes me think, when did you start Property Investors and why? Like, I mean, because were you a bit like me where you started making money and then you were like, I actually never wanted to go into education. So I wonder what your story is. And I love that you do what you do, but I want to know when it started and why.
Okay, sure. Great question. So I officially set up my property training company only like 4 years ago. 2016. Nice. I've been in property for 12 years. So I've been in property a very long time before I actually started teaching property. That's the first thing I want to say. And I think that's important because sometimes I think people will try and teach property because they're not making lots of money and they're doing it for the money. And it's like, well, hold on a minute. If you're teaching a skill, you kind of need to be experienced in that. So, anyone thinking of setting up a property training company or any training company, I'd say don't do it for the money. Do it because you've been there, done it, got the t-shirt, and you now have a calling to teach and give back. And also, it's not easy money. Like, there was a time when my property training company was making really, really good cash flow, and I was like, wow, this is great. But then as I grew, I suddenly needed staff and infrastructure, and suddenly I realized, actually, no, it's kind of so it's not a great way to make money.
It's a tough industry. I agree. I mean,
it is a tough industry, and you also when you're a trainer, there's a lot of people in this whole space that are not necessarily great, and they do give good trainers a bad name. So we are in a little bit of a spammy industry sometimes. Yeah. But anyway, why did I do it and how did I get started? So when I became financially independent, age 21, I went to Bible college. I spent 3 years studying at Bible college, and I was training because I wanted to set up a charity. I wanted to maybe set up a church or something. I wanted to go to Africa and build wells in rural parts of Africa. I just had a real calling on my life from God. And while I was at Bible college, I was only at Bible college because I had the finance from my property company to give me the time and money to be there in the first place. But while I was at Bible college, I ended up doing some research on the ethics of business, and I did a whole study on biblical economics, and that really gripped me. And it was so interesting because my church kind of didn't quite get me, because it's like, why do you want to make all this money and stuff? It's a little bit worldly. It's a bit unethical. Business is cutthroat, dog eat dog. And I studied the ethics of being a good person and also wanting to help people and make the world a better place, add value to the community and the environment and everything, but also being a business person that makes money. And I realized through the 3 years at Bible college, from 20 years old to 22 years old, I realized that actually money is a certificate of thanks. When my tenants pay me money, they're saying, thank you for the accommodation, Samuel. When my investors pay me money, they're saying, thank you for so actually the more money I make, the more people I'm helping. And then with the money that I'm making, it gives me an opportunity to do stuff, make things happen, and to give. So I'm like, actually, I kind of became released from the guilt of earning money. When I finished Bible college in 22 years old, I went crazy. I packaged and sold hundreds of property deals. I became a millionaire by 25. And I also, my dissertation that I wrote about biblical economics, I published into a book, which is called Do the Possible, Watch God Do the Impossible. And this book sold all over the world. And I set up a little group called Training Kings, which was a group which was no profit, where I was teaching people about how to set up a business, and also how to register charities and how to help people. And it was really mostly church folks that would come down. And I set that up in 2014, January 2014. And that led to my property training company, because everyone was saying, Samuel, can you just teach us about property, though, the ins and outs of property? I set my property training company up in 2016 alongside my charity works, because I started going back and forth to Africa. I ended up marrying a Zimbabwean lady, got 2 beautiful kids. That's another story. So we started building boreholes and wells and water tanks in rural parts of Africa, Zambia, Uganda. I've got Training Kings. I've got my property company. Now I've set up my property training company. And then word of mouth just blew the whole thing up. When I did my Financial Freedom Challenge, it made BBC News on the TV. And now I've got the, probably in the UK at least, the largest property training company. And I've trained tens of thousands of students. I've built my portfolio massively big. I just, as you said, I bought a castle recently, and I've got other developments. I've built houses from scratch and sold houses and done big development projects, refurbs. And yeah, I'm 29, and to be honest, I feel like I'm just getting started.
I love how much you've accomplished. I knew nothing about the Bible study. That's incredible. That's so good. I'm getting to see a side of you, and I'm sure maybe other people as well are seeing a side of you that maybe hasn't been spoken about enough, or certainly I never knew it. Maybe from your social media, you should probably say that a bit more. But I love that story. I love it. I mean, everything you do is great. But so yeah, because talking about Bible study, I get so many amazing. I've got pastors in my student base. I've got obviously very devout Christians, other religions too, but definitely from the Bible, some of them get that statement wrong, don't they? Money is the root of all evil, the love of money, right? So you said it yourself. You had a bit of guilt, but and then how do you interpret that statement? Like, how would you? Because I say this to my clients.
Very well. So for a start, as you rightly said, it's not money that's the root of all evil. It's the love of money. Yeah. And if you actually look at the Greek word in the original Bible when it was written, the love of money, it was one word. I can't remember. My Greek isn't good enough to try and pronounce the word. But the word means is it means an absolute obsession, an addiction, never ending, where you'll put money above everything else. And I think that, to be honest, I think greed, that's what it's talking about. The love of money. It's like a never ending greed of money is a bad thing. Yeah. And when people get greedy, but here's the interesting thing. That's not just speaking to people that have money, also people that don't have money. The people that I've seen that love money the most have none. Like people that are when their parents pass away and the kids are fighting over the money. They love the money, they're greedy, and they're scratching lottery tickets, and they're like wanting money. And it's like they haven't got any money. So I realized that actually having a lot of money doesn't mean that you're obsessed with it. In fact, I'm most greedy for food when I'm starving. When I'm really hungry, I'm like, a pizza comes, someone says, Samuel, can I have a pizza? I'm like, no, it's mine, it's my pizza. And then after you've had a few slices, you're like, oh, come on, guys, tuck in, because you're not hungry anymore. And actually, I think that when you don't have any money, sometimes it's actually, you're obsessed with money more. Right now, I've got more money than I've ever had in my life, and I'm least bothered about money right now than I've ever been in my life. So I think it's more of a heart issue rather than how much money you have.
Yeah, I love it. It's like you're detached from the money because you're now in control of how much you make. It's become inanimate. It doesn't control you like how someone who's not making money, like you said, they are obsessed and controlled by money fully. I love that.
And I could literally go through all the scriptures where Jesus or in the Bible generally, money is talked about. And there's so many misconceptions around money and things that are taken out of context. And there's so many people in not just Christians, but just generally a lot of religious people that wear poverty like a badge of honor. And there's also some Christians though that say, and just general religious people, that if you've got loads of money, it means God's blessing you and you're a perfect person. And I think it's all nonsense. There's no correlation between how good you are as a person and what your bank balance is. You know, you can be a rich jerk and you can be a poor jerk, and you can be a rich, humble, gracious, loving person and a poor, rich, gracious, loving, humble person. So what I'm about is teaching people how to make money, but then also having the faith and the goodwill to believe that when they make money, they'll do it ethically and they'll give generously. So, you know, I used to give 10% of my profits away to charity. We've recently changed that. And now we give 10% of our turnover. So everything that we take, 10% of the turnover we give to charity, which for me, like, when I die, I'm not going to remember how many cars I had and how many this, that. And I'm going to be thinking, actually, how many people did I help and how have I left the world? Did I leave the world better than I came in? So for me, that's like my drive.
Yeah, no, I love that. I absolutely love that. And I'm so glad you said it, because it's a statement I always get people get stuck on when it comes to religion. So thank you for clearing that up. Amazing, amazing story. Okay, castle, you mentioned in passing. What on earth made you want to buy a castle? What's the plan? What's the exit plan?
Yeah, so the thing is, I think that I teach to get comfortable being uncomfortable. And when I started out, when I bought my first house when I was just 17 years old, I was thinking, okay, I put an offer on, but I've got no ability to get a mortgage. I'm too young to buy a house. I haven't got any money. I was scared. I had to pull a joint venture partner in. I had to get a mortgage host. I had to rely on the value of value and get higher. I managed to refinance same-day mortgage back in the day of Mortgage Express and all that stuff. And it came off. But I was scared. And then my second deal and my third deal. And the castle was really just a statement, really more than anything, to myself, just to say, actually, you know what? It's a big deal. It needs a lot of work. It's a grade 2-star listed building. There's Japanese knotweed. There's structural issues. There's so many issues with it, but it's a beautiful building. And I could see the vision of what it would look like when it was finished. And I've really bought it I just wanted to stretch myself. So it's going really well. We bought it for £800,000. So to current date, I've spent £1 million on it. And it needs another chunk of money on it. And the gross development value on it is 6.35 million. So it's a big deal. It's gonna make me 7 figures in profit, assuming it comes off the plan. But it's a long old process. I bought that in 2018. Since then I've bought a piece of land, built 6 houses from scratch, and sold 4 of them already. I believe, going through. So like it's a slow process, teaching me patience. But it's beautiful. It's one of the most beautiful buildings you'll ever see. And the history behind it is incredible. The free French soldiers trained there, 200 free French soldiers. I think only one of them is alive today. He flew down from France to London, took me out for dinner. He's like in his 90s. And honestly, it's just, Winston Churchill used to visit, Charles de Gaulle used to visit from France. So, I mean, you being in France right now, maybe you should come visit it. But it's a beautiful building. And it's just great to be able to serve the country and the community, and also recognize, the history, restore it, and make some money at the same time.
Oh, incredible! I mean, I think anyone in property, it's always going to be like it's like a epitome of part of property empire to have a car. That's like, not everyone can say that casually. So, well done to you. It's an amazing achievement. So your exit plan is to sell it on to someone.
Yeah, sorry. So yeah. In terms of the actual building itself, so we've got planning permission to turn it into 2 large luxury apartments and 6 houses. We're currently trying to get planning permission for a few more houses, and yeah, we're gonna sell it on. But the exit strategy will be to refinance it. So and then rent it out.
Oh, wow, even better. Oh my gosh, so you maintain the asset for, it becomes like part of your legacy. You can move back on. Wow, what a way. I love that. And that's one thing I think about property. I mean, everything you're talking about right now, do you teach that to your students when they want to come on to learn? I mean, can they learn any level, up to any level?
Yeah, you know what? I teach everything I'm doing. Everything I've done and everything I'm doing is what I teach. So I don't teach anything that I've not done or I'm not doing, but I don't hold anything back. And even on YouTube, I document my whole process of everything, like even the castle, all the projects I'm doing, I'm working on. I document so much and just stick it on YouTube, and people can see. And I don't just stick it on YouTube. I have a team of we have 3 videographers that just follow me around all the meetings with the planning department sectors and the builders. They film it, they edit it, they pump it out on YouTube. Because again, I don't want to be that rich person that becomes wealthy and then hides away and keeps my cards close to my chest. I'd rather wear my heart on my sleeve than keep my cards close to my chest. Even if that means being misunderstood, even if that means being taken advantage of sometimes, it's all good. Life's short, and I just want to make and give and be the best I can be.
Yeah, and you can teach people along the way from the stuff that people don't show normally, like the problems, etc.
Yeah, and there's a lot of problems that happen. But hey, if you're not having problems, then you're not growing. And we all have problems. And in fact, problems get bigger. But when I look back at problems I was having 6 years ago, I'm like, that wasn't even a problem. That was such a small thing. And I know that today, the problems that I'm having today, I know that in like maybe I'm like, oh man, I need to raise £1 million for this deal, or I need to, and it feels like a big deal to me, but I know that in 5-10 years I'll look back and it'll be the stuff that I'll be eating up for breakfast. I'll be eating it for pre-breakfast because it will be so small.
Wow, love it, because you've grown so much through that.
Yeah, and we'll continue to grow. I'm 29. I'm continuing to grow.
Yeah, absolutely. 29. Gosh. So all the people are watching out there. So first of all, you've cleared up that everyone can do property, introvert or not, which is amazing. Then you teach them everything from ground up. So in 2020, everyone's going to have this question in the back of their heads, right? So the news is saying property is like going to crash and it's a really bad time. What's the deal? So what's the quickest, let's say, what's your top tip for how to make money 2020? I know we've only got a few months left, but post this crash,
Okay, first thing I want to say is no one knows for sure what's ever going to happen in the future exactly. So I'd be lying if I said I know exactly what's going to happen in not just in the property market, but just the general economy. I don't think people can. What you can do is you can follow patterns and you can predict. And I do predict. I have many predictions that I've made so far, which I've been right on 95% of them. And I might continue to predict. So that's the first thing. No one knows for sure. Second thing is the media don't have a clue what they're talking about. So most people get their information from the news, from media. The media, if you don't listen to the news, Denzel Washington says you'll be uninformed, but if you do, you'll be misinformed. So the media was saying 3 months ago, exactly as you said. The media 3-4 months ago was saying massive crash, and it was so misleading what the media were doing, because they're all, not just one or two, the BBC, the Guardian, even all of them. Right? Here's what they were saying. They were saying house prices down 4 months in a row, but it was down 0.1%. Like, but because it was down, but the headlines lie.
Yeah.
Headlines lie. And most people read the headlines and think, whoa, and they get scared. Now, actually, if you read the newspapers today, we're in a boom. We're in a boom right now. And technically, it is correct. We are in a mini boom right now in property. Property prices are booming, and people are gazumping each other. My prediction is we're in a mini boom right now, but I think it's a manufactured mini boom by the government. I think we're in a mini boom because of the bounce back loans, which investors use to buy properties. Because of furlough, people are doing pretty okay right now. We're in a mini boom because of the stamp duty holiday. The government have given us a holiday for stamp duty, so everyone's buying. That affects first-time buyers more than anyone else. So because of these things, people are suddenly rushing to buy. But once furlough runs out, and once the bounce back loans are not being given out, and once the stamp duty holiday finishes, and once people start realizing actually the property market's doing okay, but we're in a recession, I think we're going to see a crash. I think the property market's going to dip. Now listen. In property, if things are going up or if things are going down, it doesn't matter as long as you buy right and know what you're doing. And I started in 2009, which was mega crash time. And people might say, wasn't it 2008? No, because the property market always follows everything else, because sellers are too stubborn to even realize there's a crash going on. So they'll be thinking, but 3 months ago, I got my house valued by an estate agent. You're thinking, yeah, but that was 2 months ago. We're in a recession now, but they don't get it. So it normally takes 6-12 months before a property market will. But here's what you need to do. What you need to do is you need to just make sure that you're buying for cash flow. Don't buy a house and just rely on it going up like it used to in 2003 and then getting rich by mistake. You've got to be a bit more deliberate than that. So you've got to make sure that you're buying and you're getting good cash flow. So whether the property goes up or down, you're going to hold on to it. You're going to rent it out and get cash flow. And also, if you want to get capital appreciation from your property, just make sure that you're buying because everyone says, what's the market going to do? What are house prices going to do? And actually, I think it's a dumb question. And the reason it's a dumb question is because house prices do different things in different towns. So what happens in London is going to be very different to what happens in Liverpool, which will be very different to what happens in Newcastle, which will be very different to what happens in Birmingham. So it's about knowing your market and saying, how can I buy right in my market at the right time, in the right area, with the right management company for the right cash flow? So it's a bit more complex to, should I buy property now or should I wait? It's like, well, hold on a minute. It's much, much more complex than that.
Yeah, I love that. Okay, so I've got some really good questions in terms of buying and selling, right? So let's say a scenario, I've heard this from one of my traders. Their parents are getting to retirement, and he asked me, so I'm going to ask you the question, so I'll get the answer from you. So I gave him an answer, but I want to hear yours. So he said his parents are like 65 plus, right? They have a house, small mortgage, but they want to cash in because they want the cash to then buy a smaller house just to retire, you know, so their pension may not be as good. So what's the plan? What would you say to someone who has to sell because they're old? Is it a good time to sell now or later? They're not planning.
It's a good time to sell now. If you've got a house that you want to sell, and this generally, I'm talking generally across the board now, okay?
Yeah.
If you've got a house that you want to sell now, stick it on the market right now. We are in a mini boom, and I don't know how long that's going to last. So I would say sell it now, and then by the time you've got the money in from the house sale, the market's probably going to dip anyway by then. So yeah, great time to sell right now, 100%. And it's really funny because I was saying 4 months ago on YouTube, I was saying, buy now, folks. Everyone's scared, buy now. And everyone was saying, but I'm not sure because the media is saying wait. Now I'm saying, hold off just this second, unless you're very, very smart. Now the market's going crazy. Just hold off. Don't get into the bidding wars. But the media is going crazy saying, buy, buy, buy. So it's like, basically, whatever the Sun newspaper is telling you to do the exact opposite. What the taxi drivers are all saying, when the taxi drivers are talking about how great Bitcoin is, that's the time to get out. When it goes quiet, probably the time to get in.
Yeah, I love that advice. Okay, perfect. So that's solved that problem for anyone retiring and trying to cash out. What about auction, or should they sell through an auction? Is it better? Where are you going to get a better price? Auction, because I used to supply auctions, so I remember bidding wars and they were like crazy. So they're good exits for an investor. But what if you're a private owner and you just want to sell your one major house? Better on the estate agent, open market, or auction?
So I don't think there's I've bought from auction, I've bought from Rightmove estate agents, I've also sold from auction, and I've sold houses not on auction. I don't think there's a better or worse. I think it's just about understanding the differences. So if you want the money, if you do not want to be messed about and you think, I don't want people traipsing through my house, I want to get a quick sale, I don't want to be messed around, I'm too old for that, or I'm too busy for that, I think auction's a pretty good way to sell your house. And like you said, there can be bidding wars going on, and you can get more money from an auction than you would from a high street agent, for sure. However, you can also not. So, I mean, recently I sold some houses of mine on auction, and I agreed the reserve price around about end of February time. I agreed the reserve price, but then by the time, that was when Corona happened. And I set the reserve price really low to get excitement, but then because then lockdown happened, my house went to auction on the 1st of April. It was like it was some kind of a sick April Fool's joke. That was basically the day prior to the heavy lockdown. So that was the day it went to auction. And I ended up selling a few houses, and they only just hit the reserve. And I was praying they wouldn't even hit the reserve. I didn't want them to sell because I'm thinking the reserve's low. I couldn't change the reserve price. So I kind of got myself a little bit, I wasn't too happy with how it went. I sold a bit low, but I didn't get messed around. So my advice right now, if you're selling, the advantage to selling from auction right now is that when someone puts in the offer, they can't pull out. So if there's a little drop in a month or two, they can't try and renegotiate. So that would be an advantage. But I would probably say, generally speaking, you're generally probably going to get more money selling from a high street. Selling from a high street, but it really, really depends. Do whatever feels right to you.
Yeah, great answer. Wouldn't disagree with any of it, to be honest. Yeah, it's all about into price bracket as well, area, whatever, So yeah, all of that makes a difference. Now, what about if someone wanted to start in property brand new? Let's say they wanted to add, because pensions in this COVID crisis are massively going to suffer. Like I don't know if people are interested in knowing what COVID is doing to the pension market, but ultimately they're worth next to nothing. So if someone is 40 now and relying on this state pension to pay them one day, they're not going to make any money. So my major advice to them is get into financial markets, also get into property. What would be the best retirement plan in property for you?
Okay, so there was a lady called Mrs. Haysmith, and Mrs. Haysmith was actually my school teacher. She taught me maths and she taught me IT. Mrs. Haysmith, when I left school, I started doing property. She was a school teacher. She got made redundant from my school. She was my favorite school teacher. She got made redundant. she had very, very little income. And she was a little bit worried about what was going to happen. Her pension was absolutely rubbish, and she was really kind of worried. She then inherited a property, which was from her mom, which she knocked down, turned into 3 properties, sold them. She came on with some of my training, and I mentored her. She was my teacher, but then I became her teacher. And I was just with her last night having dinner. She's gone on to build a little portfolio. She's become financially independent. She's not rich, but now she's got an income coming in, which is covering her. So now she doesn't have to worry about pension. She doesn't have to worry about an income. She's probably late 50s, maybe early 60s. I'm not sure what I'm going to say. So I'd say I personally don't have a pension. I think that property and business and investments, when you're in control, the problem is that so many people do is they don't become financially literate, and they rely on other people to invest for them. So they'll say, I'll just get a financial advisor in. But the thing is, the financial advisor is working as a financial advisor. He's not financially independent, and he is, although he's FCA regulated, he's on commission. So everything he's telling you to invest in, he's on commission. So there's a lot of, I would say, understand what you want. If you're in Forex, if you're in business, if you're in property, everything is a vehicle, and you've got to figure out what's my end goal. Like the same as when you're going on any journey, the first thing that's going to happen is you're going to grab a sat nav. The sat nav's going to figure out where you are right now. You're then going to tell the sat nav where you want to go, so it knows your location, it knows your destination. They're going to map you out a journey. So I would say you need to write down, where are you currently? What's your income? What's your pension? What are your savings? Where are you? Where do you want to be? And then it's about thinking, okay, well, how am I going to get there? What's the best vehicle? What's the best strategy? And start making a business plan. And for sure, get mentors. Find people that have been there, done it already, and get them to help you, because getting that business plan is the fundamental thing that you need to start to become financially independent.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, your knowledge level is fantastic. And I mean, we could talk about what you know for ages and ages, but I obviously want to keep this, I want to show people how much they can get through property. And I think what you can show them is amazing. So now I want to, and all of this you teach, right? And we're going to give them a link about how they can get hold of you, your training. I mean, I'm sure you've got levels of training, just like I do, of how far they want to go. You can talk about that towards the end, but I really now want to switch, because I feel that people hear these amazing stories, right, of how to make money in property, but they underestimate the mindset that's required. And we've talked about a little bit of your mindset and how you got into it, which is amazing. But let's go through like a quick fire area where I want to know the worst stuff. Okay, so I want to know, what's the worst thing that happened in property for you? That people know the ugly stuff, like.
The worst stuff in property for me is probably bad tenants. I think as a property investor, that's probably, people dread having no tenants. What if I can't rent it out? I'll say, no. There's something worse than no tenants, and that's a bad tenant. Yeah. So that's probably the biggest hardship that I've had. And I think whenever I've had a bad tenant, I can always point it back to one problem. There's one source problem, and it always comes back to me. And you got to take responsibility, because, and I used to blame the tenant, then I'd start blaming the management company, then I'd start blaming my overseer that found the management company. And then actually, who found the management company? Who appointed the management company? Me. And if it was a member of my staff that appointed them, who appointed the member of staff to be the person that appoints the management company? Me. So actually, I've got to take some responsibility here. And I could always see what went wrong. It might be a case of, you know what? I remember when we appointed that management company, and actually we did have some question marks, but because of this, that, and the other, we went with them because maybe they were a bit cheaper, or maybe there was a tenant that said they wanted to move in, and we referenced them, and the reference didn't come back all that great, but they had the cash and they were prepared, and we just wanted the money quickly. So it always points back to me, and I think that all the problems you're going to get, if you're going to have problems with property, it's going to boil down to 4 things. It's going to be either you've got a bad tenant or no tenant, or you're going to have a bad house, or you're going to have some change in regulation, or the market or interest rates are going to change. So they're the 4 fundamental problems that you can have. And I've had all of those problems. Luckily, the problem that I've not had so much, which most people have, is the fifth problem, which is no house. They just don't ever do it. They don't ever buy it. They're so scared of the problems that their problem is they have a job forever and don't ever get started. That's the biggest risk, okay? So how do you, my advice would be, how do you de-risk this? Every investment is going to have some risk. How do I de-risk this? All right, my biggest problem is I've had bad tenants. How do I eliminate that from happening in the future? Maybe I get a good management company. Maybe I take deposits. Maybe if I'm not sure, we get a guarantor. So it's about just de-risking. But I think you asked me what's been the biggest challenge for me. And that's one of the reasons why, instead of, my goal used to be, I wanted to have 1,000 houses. That was my goal. I thought that would be a great achievement. And I remember in 2016, I think it was, I actually had a business mentoring session with Lord Alan Sugar. And me and Lord Sugar ended up having some tiffs and stuff, which went pretty public. But the meeting that I had with Lord Sugar, he really changed my whole business plan. And in the same way, when I was saying, where are you, where do you want to go? I realized that having 1,000 houses, that didn't actually serve me. What I actually wanted was not 1,000 houses. What I really wanted to do was I wanted to get into bigger deals. I wanted to start doing bigger development deals. So I changed my strategy. I've sold quite a lot of my little houses. And I still continue to do that. I'm still every time I have a problem with one of my little houses now, I'll get rid of the tenant and I'll just sell it. So I am moving into bigger deals, hence the land and the house building and the castle. And stuff, and I think that's probably what I would advise with property. I know yourself as well. We've spoken in another interview, and you said that as a property investor, you got this problem where you're like, I've been really successful in property, but now I've got all these tenants and all these problems. So what I do when I teach people is I start off teaching them how to get one house, but then I'll advise every time you buy your second house, then your third house, get bigger and bigger, because it takes just as much energy and effort and stuff to buy a big house or to do a big deal, just to do a small deal. So what you want to do is you want to start with a small deal, because you're always going to make mistakes when you start. So start small, but then your second deal go a bit bigger, then third deal go a bit bigger, then sell that first house, and then put that into your fourth, and just start scaling things and going bigger and bigger. That's what I've done, and that's what I advise.
Like it, absolutely love it. And you talked about Alan Sugar. I mean, okay, so what other mentors have you used? Like, who else would you say is, this person's really helped me, this person was great? Books as well.
So there's so many different definitions of mentor. So my first mentor, and this is where I had my, because Alan Sugar was like, no, I never mentored Samuel Leeds, and he basically did some big speech about me. Which he thought was going to make me look bad, but it ended up making him look bad. It actually blew me up. So thanks Sugar for that. He's a dick, by the way. Like, I learned a lot from him, but he's a grumpy git. He hates everybody. He just trolls.
I have met him. I don't know if you were at the National Achievers Congress 2012, but
yeah, I was there.
Yeah,
I saw it.
Yes, of course. Actually, you mentioned this a while ago, but I was there and I met him, and yeah, he hates financial trading because, and I realized from the inside info, even in the finance in London, he got rejected by a financial fund. That's why he hates all Forex and anyone financial, because he gets rejected.
He's a very angry guy. I don't want to be like that. Okay, he's a very angry person. However, he's done well with business. I learned a lot from him, so I'm always going to credit him. Okay. So
he's a nice old-fashioned traditional business guy. Even I've got his book here or there. Yeah.
But he's not doing anything anymore. He's old school now. He's just doing his TV show thing, But hey, he's done well. He's made really good money. I respect him a lot, and I learned from him a lot. My first mentor was Jim Rohn. I never met Jim Rohn. Jim Rohn died just before I started getting into the whole world. Read all his books. I have to say he's my mentor because I listened to thousands of hours of his CDs. So Jim Rohn, more currently, Grant Cardone. Grant Cardone is one of my mentors. I've spent a lot of time with Grant. We meet up, we do Zoom calls and things, and he's been incredible. On a more well-known scale, Robert Kiyosaki. His book got me started, Rich Dad Poor Dad. I've had the privilege of meeting him several times. I've introduced many of my students to Robert Kiyosaki over dinners. I've introduced my little son my poor son to my rich dad. You know, so I'm just constantly immersing myself. Blair Singer's helped me massively. Shout out to Blair Singer. Marcus de Maria has been a good friend and mentor to me, who you probably know because he's more in your space.
Yeah.
So yeah, just so many people, but also many of the people that I'm naming, I've done a lot of stuff, you know, paid a lot of money, but then there've also been people that have mentored me who have just mentored me from their books and from their CDs, or I've attended their set, like Tony Robbins, you know. Tony Robbins, I've never shook his hand, but I've been to his training programs and he's massively shaped and inspired the way I think. So many people, and if you're not, I'm never ever going to get to the stage where I'm not learning from people, because you can always find people that are more successful than you are. Doug Dorbury, I have to shout Doug Dorbury out. Doug Dorbury was my first ever mentor. Mentored me, trained me for about 9-10 years. I used to meet him regularly. And if you've got to find someone more successful than you are, and then model them, learn from them, and then when you become more successful than they are, then you go find a new mentor. Then you go find someone else to learn from, and just stay friends with them. When your mentors become your friends, you know you're doing well.
Yeah,
That's
absolutely.
happened to so many of my mentors and my mentees. Many of the people that I've trained have become so successful, I'll be asking them for advice. You know, and become friends. And you've got to stay humble in business. You cannot, as soon as you start thinking, I know everything there is to know, or trying to be the big I am or anything like that, as soon as you start doing that, then you're just going to isolate yourself, and you're going to start shrinking.
Yeah, no, 100%. I love that. And talking about Grant Cardone, what was the best advice, if you could put it down to one thing that he told you? What would you feel like, yeah, because of that, it really changed the way I looked at business, property, life, whatever? What was it?
To go broke.
Go broke?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, because I know it's a funny, I could speak a whole thing on this, but he taught me to go broke. In other words, pretty much every penny you have, you should be reinvesting into the business, reinvesting into property. So I got to the point where I got a bit comfortable. About 18 months ago, I'd always have £1 million in the bank, looked pretty, made me feel safe. I started paying down mortgages, buying things cash. You know, throwing money at people, just saying, oh, I'll just put money into your deals. Last year, I gave over £1 million to people to just invest for me, because I couldn't be bothered to do it myself. I kind of got a little bit lazy, a little bit fat. Grant Cardone kicked that out of me, and then Corona kicked it out of me even more.
Yeah, Corona.
Yeah, it did.
Yeah, no, you're right. I mean, it changes a lot of businesses. But no, that's a really good piece of advice, because I do agree. That definitely makes you start getting that fire back in you to create more wealth and do something bigger than last time. So
you know what he said to me? Grant Cardone said that I was over the hill.
Okay.
And honestly, at the time I was 28 years old, and I'm thinking, I'm 28 years old. He's 62 years old. He's in better shape than I am physically. He's wealthier than I am. And he's telling me as a 62-year-old that me, 28, he's saying I'm over the hill. I was offended. I was ticked off. But then as he began to talk me through and explain why, I think he was saying it deliberately to offend me, to make me, you know, to do something. So he's very clever. And it just, that meeting that I had with him, it just really changed things for me. So, yeah, I've got massive respect for Grant Cardone. He's not perfect. He's a human being. He gets a lot of stick as well. He gets a lot of hate online, but so does everybody. So does Donald Trump, and he was still voted the president. It's the minority that have the loud voice, but the majority, you know, it's just, I know you get hate, I get hate. Like, it's just, that's just part of being rich and putting yourself out there and being super successful and saying it like it is. Yeah. Right now, 2020, it's like people can't even tell the truth anymore without offending someone, and offending people seems to be a crime these days. It's almost like freedom of speech unless you disagree with this, and I don't believe in that. I'll continue saying what needs to be said. I'll continue saying what I believe to be true, being true to myself. And if some people are offended and have lots to say about it, then that's fine. But you don't have to agree with everything I say. You know, you just have to make up your own mind. But ultimately, I can only talk from my experience. And so Grant Cardone has really helped me. He's offended me many times, but he's really helped me grow, develop, and make more money.
I like that. That shows you're very coachable. If you can take it on the chin, that's really good. So talking about having to deal with hate. So what advice would you give to business owners coming up there? I give them this advice as well. I mean, that I think it's so important to understand how to deal with problems when they happen. So what would be your advice on, first of all, how do you deal with it personally?
Yeah, I think listen, no one wants to be hated. And of course, you know, everybody knows that if you are not getting any hate, then you are not impacting enough people. So everyone knows that. For every one hate, you've helped 100. Like, so logically, it's going to happen when you become well known. Celebrities are hated. Rich people are hated. So if you're a rich celebrity, you're going to be hated. So that everyone knows that. But I guess your question, how do I personally deal with it? I think what I would say is, firstly, you've got to ask yourself, well, if people are saying bad stuff about you, is there truth in it? Is it true? And you need to be checking yourself, and you also need people around you who you are accountable to, that won't just pat you on the back all the time and say you're great and you're amazing. You need people around you that will actually tell you when you're wrong, and you need people around you to tell you when actually, you know, that video you seemed a bit arrogant in that video. I'd reshoot that. You know, you need people in your team, in your advisors, mentors, staff that can absolutely be straight talking to you. So I think that's really, really, really important. And also to be able to separate the difference between critique and hate. So if someone says, you know, oh, you're a loser, or you're a scammer, you've got a big chin, your wife is ugly, like that's just out and out hate. But then if someone says, you know, actually, I really disagree with your opinion on this, and I think you're wrong, and this is the truth, and blah, 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 then that's just someone disagreeing with you. And then I'll just look at that and maybe be changed by it. So I actually think, you know, haters and critics and even the media scrutinizing you and the spotlighting on you and stuff, although they're shining a spotlight on you, it's also, they're almost acting like your blind spots as well a little bit. So what you really need is you need people around you that can tell you before the haters will say it. You know, because you don't want the media on you. Like, luckily when the media jumped on me, and believe me, they had bad stuff to say, but it was all allegedly. Someone said, this random person from the internet who nobody said. So it was all kind of like nonsense. And thank God that I have got good people around me that actually made sure that myself, my integrity, my business, the integrity of my staff was high. I'm not saying perfect, but was high, because, you know, that would have killed many businesses. That kind of media attention and scrutiny would have killed most people. But for me, because of my strength of character, my strength of my confidence, my courage, and my integrity and my team's integrity and our policies, good, our caring nature, the fact that we have happy customers. We have never done any joint ventures with anyone that's gone horribly wrong. We've always, I've personally footed the bill when things have gone wrong, just because that's the kind of person I am. So, you know, I think, thank God for that. So right now, I still get haters. You know, I had a big heavy wave at the beginning of the year. I still get it, but I just think, listen, it doesn't matter what some stranger on the internet is saying. It matters what my wife is saying. It matters what my customers are saying. It matters what my pastor of my church is saying. It matters what my mom is saying. Like, these are all straight talking people that will tell me when I'm wrong. And if you've got a circle around you that are close, that can call you out, that call a spade, that aren't yes men or yes women, that are not afraid to tell you when you're wrong, and you're constantly checking yourself, and your heart is good, and you're sleeping well, and you're adding value, and your customers are happy, then ultimately, I don't really think you've got too much to worry about.
Yeah, no, I love it. And you just answered the question that I was going to ask you next. Who were the most important network of people around you? You've answered it. 100% agree with you. I think it's great advice. I think everyone who wants to be big in something has to deal with the modern day problem, which is the online stuff, which is great. Thank you for answering that. Now, final question. A couple of questions. How do you cope? Actually, I've got another one. I've got so many questions. Sorry, I'll keep them really quick. I have a question about, about you still. Downtime. What's the best thing? How do you like de-stress? How do you cope with, how do you cope with like stress? Because business can get stressful. So what's your favorite downtime kind of thing that you do?
Yeah, so a few things. Number one is just with my wife, you know, date nights, romantic time, you know, just that for me is like real switch off. And you have to diarize that or make it happen, or sometimes just say, you know what, turning my phone off and make that happen.
Yeah.
I think also massages. When I'm being, I like to take long 90-minute massages. I've got a lady locally lives close to me. That's like, for me, is a massive de-stress.
Yeah.
Recently bought a little swim spa, which has got like a jacuzzi in it and everything. You know, when I'm underwater, completely underwater, what I do is I do this thing where I'll go underwater and I just sort of just float, but not float because I'm in the water, but it just feels like my whole body just, when I'm underwater, I'll obviously not be there for too long because I'm holding my breath, but my whole body just kind of totally de-stresses itself. I've got a personal trainer as well, so I work out 1 hour a day, Monday to Friday. That's like my happy time as well. Things aren't going too well in the office. I'm thinking, well, at least they're going well in the gym. If things aren't going too well in the gym, well, at least they're going well in the office. Like, it's a bit of an escape thing, which is also healthy. So, yeah, that kind of stuff. I also like adrenaline sports. I've got to be safe now. I have had some injuries and some serious accidents, but I do like, I've done like 7 bungee jumps. I just feel like when I'm just floating through the sky, like, for me, it's just a real, I am an adrenaline junkie. So that got to be a bit more careful now after some of the accidents, but, and driving. I love driving, listening to audio CDs, listening to some gospel music while I'm in the car. I have a lot of downtime, but it's really, really important to have that, because otherwise, and sleeping as well. I sleep 8 hours a day, deep sleep, no distractions. So I have a lot of chilled out time, and that's super important.
Yeah, and it is super important for peak performance. I'm glad that you also mentioned that. Thank you. I really, really took a lot of value from that myself as well. Okay, I have a random question because I always have to bring women into it. Women versus men students. Tell me the stuff, and I give a lot of slack to my students when they underperform. But we're going to now, I want to focus on how you mentor, amazing people through your property investors company. So tell me, what are the major problems women do? Like, I feel like sometimes in financial trading, for example, I feel that women tend to be more scared of the big money. So I have a trading fund that I give allocation of funds to. The men will go for the big money straight away. No hesitation. They're like, yeah, I want that. Even if they're same affordability and they go for the big money. Women will always take a back step and go for the small option first. What do you find? How do you find women change?
You know what? It's a really interesting question. I love women. I find that women, I have some of my most successful students are female.
Good.
Interestingly, my following, and I think I've told this before actually, my following on YouTube and stuff is around about 80% men and 20% women. So I have a much higher percentage of men that follow me on the internet.
Yeah.
However, my actual students, if you go on some, advanced training, or I do something called the Accelerated Coaching and Mentoring Program, where it's quite intimate, like 25 people, it's like 50-50. So in terms of percentage, my actual students, about 50-50. And in terms of differences between women and men, I haven't really seen that. I think that there are differences between men and women. I think sometimes women might tend to be a little bit less confident in the early stages, because they might think, and this sounds very, very stereotypical, but men might tend to, okay, sorry if I offend anybody, be a little bit more practical in terms of like fixing kitchens, knowing how much things are going to cost to fix. Now that's, of course, a massive sweeping statement, but I find that women sometimes are a bit like, oh, I don't know how much things are going to cost, and they're not that confident. But then what happens is, when they get it, then they're dangerous. like when they get that confidence and they're like, actually, I can do this. Half the guys don't know what they're talking about anyway. They're just making it up, And when they get it, they'll absolutely fly. But of course, everybody, whether they're man, woman, black, white, whatever, everyone's an individual. So I don't tend to ever think, oh, because they're a woman, they might be like, honestly, some of my best, most powerful members of staff are women. So this whole idea that women are, not as good at property or not as capable at making money, I think is complete and utter nonsense. And it's great to see you empowering so many women. My wife as well, like, she's done a few videos and she's been very successful. And it's great to see that.
Yeah, no, 100%. And the reason I fully appreciate what you said, and I don't feel like you've offended anyone, because I have to dissect men and women, because I never realized that women even had an issue with getting into property or financial trading or whatever, because I just took it as second nature. But I guess not everybody's thinking the way I did when I was growing up. So there is a difference, but I feel like the more work you're doing with female students and me with female traders, whatever, I think we're going to close that gap slowly. But that's why we need people like us, I guess, to show them how it's done and build up confidence. So I love that. So you've got so much value. I have to say, you have spoken about incredible things, and I want to say thank you. We could easily keep talking about so much more, but I want everyone to know where they can find out about your incredible properties mentoring services. How does it work? Tell us the program they should start on, and what level could they actually get to? What's the top as well?
Yeah, sure. Great question. Okay, so generally speaking, I don't like anyone to sign up for any of my training or to do any paid for training or to become a mentee until they've at least done some stuff for free, whether it's jumped on a call with someone, whether they've had like a webinar with me, a session, and then they can really get to understand what I'm about, what my teachings are about. And sure, from this video, they might have got a little bit of an idea about the way I think, but I like people to understand, you know, the full process of how the training works, the property investment strategies, and then they can work out if it's right for them or not. So, I mean, I do run a webinar, which is it's a free webinar. It's welcome for anyone to come on, which will last around about an hour or so, which I'd really suggest if anyone's watching this and they're thinking, you know what, you know, I'm interested, I'd recommend they do that. And it's really about finding deals. So I think the first thing you've got to get good at is finding property deals. So the deal finding webinar, we teach you all the different types of deals, how to find the deals. And then there is an invitation at the end of the webinar if people want to go and do some paid training and get mentoring and coaching. We have a membership, which is £95 per month. Mm-hmm. And people can even test it out. We ask for, we give people a week where they pay £1, they check it out, they have a mentoring call, they do some coaching, they go through some of the training. And then if they like it and they're like, this is awesome, it's then £95 a month. And for that, you get advanced training, loads and loads of videos, weekly coaching calls with me, which are a group coaching call. You get one-on-one mentoring phone calls where you can jump on the phone with a property expert, someone that's financially independent, and you can ask them specific questions. And that's really like the foundational product that we have. It's called Samuel 365. And then we do have advanced training as well. So if people want to really get serious and want to physically meet up and come to events and, you know, come around to some of the, I mean, I've even done some of the training in my house. So I just have small groups. The most expensive, if you do everything, all of our training and absolutely everything, it works out about £12,000. But for that, you're gonna, I mean, geez. And sometimes people say it's expensive, and I say, look, if it's expensive, then just do the £95 thing, or just do the free webinar, or just go to university and spend £9,000 per semester to learn about art. You know, listen, there's no right or wrong. You've just got to do what's right for you. So that's why we start with the webinar. We can figure out if it's right for them, and then take it from there.
Yeah, I love that approach. Really, really transparent. I feel everyone should try and have a look. You know, I think properties are like a must-have in life. So guys, just get on the link, have a look for yourself and see what Simon can teach you. And I can tell just from the period we've had him on this YouTube video, there's a lot you can learn from him and your team. So I really appreciate everything you're doing. All the tips, everything. You know, I want to see more successes. Good luck with the castle. We'll be watching. Yeah, and you know, it's a final piece of advice about COVID. What should they cope with? You know, someone who's like absolutely giving up. What's that last bit of advice you want to give them so that they don't?
Yeah, well, I would say with COVID and everything, the most important piece of advice I'll say is don't be afraid, because, I mean, I'm not saying don't be cautious, but fear never helped anyone. Fear never cured any disease. Fear never. So don't be afraid. I mean, general piece of advice are to continue learning. Every day is a learning day. The more you learn, the more you earn. So to get the right knowledge, because most people fail because they listen to the wrong people, but then also implement, take massive action, believe in yourself, believe you can do it, and also be creative. You're going to hit obstacles, you're going to hit walls, but the people that succeed are the people that walk around the walls, walk around the obstacles, rather than quitting and giving up on themselves. So I think that would be my general piece of advice. Knowledge, action, belief, and creativity. Combine that, you have the ingredients to become very, very wealthy.
Yeah, love it. Thank you. Thank you for mentoring people like the way you do, and your energy is contagious. So thank you so much. Love it. Hope you guys took a lot from this. Lots of comments below on other questions. If I missed out a question, I felt like I asked a lot, but I'm always going to miss something. So if there's any important question I missed, then just put it in the comments. Any of your property experiences, whatever. Property versus Forex, something I've talked about a lot. And even check out Samuel's YouTube channel. He's great. He's got a huge following. So have a look at that and you'll see how we talk about property versus Forex as well. So, but main thing, jump on there, link below, and see what Samuel's services can do for you. I feel like you could really benefit. So thank you, Samuel. Thank you so much for today. See you in another video. Thank you so much.
Thanks.